What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Student Built Startups Podcast, episode 34. I'm your host, Cameron Stone, entrepreneur and marketing analytics student at UMD. I interview student entrepreneurs to share their stories and business strategies. Today's guest is going to speak about how data science and branding combined can make a huge impact on your business. He is a data science and brand management double major at Minerva, who has created a tool to help you find the perfect one-word domain for your brand. If you're interested in finding out more about this tool, you can head over to oneword.domains. I'm super excited to introduce you all to the founder and owner of One Word Domains, Stephen Tay. Hey, Stephen, I am super happy to have you here on the Student Built Startups Podcast. I am just absolutely thrilled to hear about your story and all of the knowledge that you have to share with everyone listening. So I'll have you start off by saying hello to everyone listening and sharing one crazy but true fact about yourself.
So yeah, thank you so much for having me. My name is Steven. I'm a data science student at the Minerva schools at KGI. And one true crazy fact about myself is definitely the time when I was able to stay super lean while staying in San Francisco for the first year. I actually survived on a $50 monthly budget for the entire year. Two ways that I did that was one, going to tons of hackathons because they had shit tons of free food there. That was really, really helpful. I remember those ones I actually brought food containers to these hackathons to get food for the coming week. I know it was a very thrifty way of me to do that, but I don't do that now, but I used to do that during my freshman year. And the second way was going to food banks because they had these programs for starving college students for us to get free groceries every week. So those are the ways that I was able to stay so lean. But I think although I don't do that now, I'm more reasonable with my spendings. But I think this sort of lean value does help me run my startup because so far with my startup, I've been doing it very, very lean. And I haven't been spending any money that is related to advertising or anything like that. I mainly put it into the product itself. So I think that's really, really helped me develop the product in a very efficient way.
Yeah, definitely. I absolutely think that is just awesome and kind of crazy. I'm a super big fan of living lean when you need to get something going and just saving some money by doing that. But $50 a month is crazy to me. I couldn't imagine doing that, but that is impressive. You went off of $50, so I'm sure there's a lot of people listening right now who are like, man, $50, I need to step up my game.
That's just a disclaimer though, that's excluding rent because rent's already covered by the school. We stay in the school campus, but then it's just for groceries and transportation and mobile, your data plans and stuff like that. So yeah.
Still, that's pretty awesome.
Thanks, man.
I know I like how you said that kind of transferred over to your business, because I know a lot of businesses, especially today with VCs kind of funding money real big up front. I think that things are going to start switching, going back to people starting small and being kind of practical, because the VC thing is, I think it's almost kind of like a bubble that's could have some negative alterations to that. So
Totally, I totally agree, because I think there's this new up and coming trend with this indie hackers, indie makers sort of movement where we focus on creating a sustainable and profitable business right from the get-go. And then, in the future, if you need cash infusion, you can get it, but not necessarily. We focus more on steady incremental growth instead of exponential. And it's more of a sustainable long-term practice instead of something where you want to increase your valuation as much as possible in the shortest time possible. So I think that's something that not just Silicon Valley, but the rest of the world is trying to adopt. And I think there's definitely a lot of potential in that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So we can get started on our first section here with you sharing a little bit about your educational and entrepreneurial story, including some details about your business, One Word Domains.
Great. So I started, to give you some context, I am studying in this school called Minerva, and the way Minerva works is we travel to a different country every semester. So first first year, we study in San Francisco, but then the second year onwards, we go to a different country each semester. So we start with Seoul in South Korea, and then we go to Hyderabad in India, and then in Berlin in Germany, and then last semester I was just in Buenos Aires and in Argentina. And throughout all these semesters, starting in San Francisco itself, I was already introduced to this startup culture because of Silicon Valley. And then during my freshman year summer, I did my internship in Tokyo with a startup incubator doing blockchain and cryptocurrencies. And through all those experiences, I was naturally imbued with this whole the idea of making and building products that could benefit the user and be sustainable and profitable at the same time. So I've always been, even before joining Minerva itself, I actually self-published 2 books, science fiction novels, and I sold 1,500 copies of one book and then 1,000 copies of the other back in my home country, Malaysia. So I think with that, I had some sort of experience doing entrepreneurial efforts, and coming to Minerva, I sort of transferred what I've learned from that into something that's more related to software, more related to product management. So I think with all those, tying it back to One Word Domains, how I got started with that is actually really funny because so at the beginning of the summer, I was thinking to myself, I probably should start a new side project. So I was thinking of different ideas, and I was like, I want to come up with a good name. But I wasn't able to because I'm pretty much a perfectionist when it comes to naming and branding. So I couldn't find a good name. So I thought to myself, why hasn't anyone created a tool where you can pair up like the top 10,000 most commonly used English words with different TLDs like .ai, .co, .io, like the very popular ones in the startup world. I've tried different domain name generators like name mash, lean domain search and stuff like that. But I realized that I didn't exactly need another generator. I needed something that shows like a collection, a database of all the available domain names. And then I can just choose one. It doesn't really have to be entirely related to my startup. It just has to be something that, sounds cool, short, and very startup-y. I quote in my Hacker Noon article that there are these names like Orchard, there's this startup called Orchard.com, there's Notion, all these different names that are short, one word. And I'm a particular fan of one word domains because it's very, it gives a lot of authority, I guess. So yeah, sorry, I'm sort of rambling here.
It's all good.
But so basically, this is how I got started with one word domains. I was like, I needed a database. So and at school, I'm a data science student, so I use a lot of Python. I have a lot of experience, more academic wise, with data wrangling and data analytics. So I decided to apply my skills in school to create something more practical. And I thought to myself that I haven't done anything related to web development in a while. So why not use this as a great opportunity for me to get started? So I did that, and I set a goal for myself to build it within a week because I didn't want to take too long. I did that, and then I launched a product hunt, and then it just took off. Like from the product I launched, I got to second place in product hunt. That improved my SEO a lot and brought a lot of users to the site, more than 5,000 within one day. And then the week after, I got interviews from different domain name news websites. So one of them is called Domain Name Wire. Got to give a shout out to Andrew from that website. He's really nice to talk to me and feature my story on the site. We actually had a podcast as well. It was really fun. And then the weekend right after that, I was planning to post on Hacker News, but then someone did it for me. And I was in the middle of working on the code, and I was like, my phone was pinging with all these survey requests because I had a survey on my site. I was like, what's going on? I went to Google Analytics, and I was like 120 people on the site every single minute and that continued for 5 hours. And because I got to the front page of Hacker News, and that's basically what you get if you get it to the front page. And that really, really helped, both in terms of getting more eyeballs on the page, but also giving me a lot of constructive feedback, because the crowd on Hacker News is slightly different from Product Hunt. They are less, flattering, but more constructive. So I think if you want feedback, Hacker News is definitely the right place to go. So tying everything up, this is basically the story of how I got started with One Word Domains. And I think there's a lot of more things that happen after that. I've received sponsorship acquisition offers from different registrars. And I think I'm just trying to build it out right now and see, because it all started out as a side project. And now I'm just trying to see how far I can take this and if I can actually turn it into a sustainable business model in the long run. So yeah, that's basically the summary.
Yeah, definitely. I really I like your mindset that you have of it being like a side project, because it's almost as if you're setting your expectations low, and then when it does well, which I'm sure it will, because it is a really good idea. And I've looked at your website and I saw the post that you put up, and it seems like a very well thought out, planned out, effective tool. So I'm sure it will do well. But when it does well, you're just going to be like awesome.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think that when you're looking for product market fit, especially when you're building a new startup, I feel like it's not something that you actively find. It's something that you sort of achieve serendipitously when you create something that solves your own need and also happens to solve a huge group of people's needs as well. So I think that's my takeaway from this whole project.
Yeah, definitely. When you provide value for others, they're going to naturally come to you, and you can always transition that to some sort of business model in the long run. So
100%.
Yeah. So was there ever like a specific point in time where you just like completely determined like I want to do entrepreneurship, or did you kind of just translate these projects that you were working on and kind of shift them down towards that path?
I feel like there's no specific point in time. It's everything just sort of built up since, when I told you earlier about me publishing my own books, that sort of triggered everything. I actually started writing my own books and selling to my peers. Even when I was 13, like when I was really young, I was just print them out using my dad's printer and like staple them. And just like, they were really rudimentary, but that sort of triggered everything. And to see people's lives and to hear other people's feedback on how my product, my book or my domains have helped them in a way, that always gives me like the motivation. It's not even about the money at this point. It's just like the satisfaction of being able to see that the product has impacted people's lives, and that's something that has always been driving me forward. So yeah, I don't think that's something like a point in life where it's like, bam, I'm gonna do anything that's remotely related to entrepreneurship. So it's like something that is continuously building up, and with all these small, tiny little experiments that I'm running.
Yeah, I really like your mindset that you have, as you just want to help impact people through what you're working on. I think that having that mindset will set anybody up for like happiness for themselves, which I think is like what I would consider like success in a sense. So I think that's a really great mindset.
Totally agree.
And about the books, I think that's really cool. I know like almost anything that anybody does today can be turned into some form of entrepreneurship. The books, like authors, artists, musicians, it's the world is kind of just shifting that way, where you don't have to go to a publisher, you don't have to go to recording producer, whatever. So I think that's definitely pretty interesting as well. Yeah,
I totally agree. I think the bar for especially online entrepreneurship is getting lower and lower with all these new tools. Everyone probably knows Shopify, and like there's this new tool called Paddle where you can use to manage recurring subscriptions. So if you're doing a podcast and you're trying to charge people, that's something you can do. There are even subscription tools that are specifically for podcasts. There's this thing called Supercast. I literally just saw it yesterday. And there's just a lot of these tools that help you do online entrepreneurship, makes the whole experience much more streamlined. And I think there's no excuse for people to not do entrepreneurship if you want to.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you there. So I guess, what was one thing you wish you would have known before you started this journey? And not necessarily something that like, because I know like not knowing stuff can lead to like failures, and the failures help you, but something that you think would have just helped you throughout the process, I guess.
Definitely. There's this one thing that has been bugging me for a while now, and it's more of a technical sort of detail. It's not really entrepreneurial or business. So there's this term called tech debt in the programmer's world. So it's basically when you go on to a certain path using a certain language or using a certain framework, and then you end up, accruing all of these tiny little problems that you do not fix in the early stages, but then there's a shit ton of them in the later stages. So basically what happened to me is I wasn't very good at backend development. Even with this project, my backend was very, very rudimentary. I was literally using TXT files as, my database storage. It's not the most efficient manner. And now that I have like over 15,000, records of people clicking on different domains and like mapping it out to different TLDs, I am sort of having a trouble to transfer all of them to a more efficient database storage. And that's something that I would have loved to master right from the beginning and did it right from the beginning. But I think in the world of entrepreneurship, it's all about trial and error. There cannot be any, regrets, because like it's impossible for you to have done everything perfect right from the beginning. Yeah. And I've heard about this quote somewhere. I forgot who said it, but they say that if your product is perfect when you launch, and if you don't see any improvement like 1 year after you launch your product, you probably are launched too late. So like you gotta launch early and have an MVP that's definitely imperfect, and build on from there. So yeah, that's basically takeaway.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say like that might have something to do with like that lean philosophy that you went into it with, thinking, just got to get this thing up off the ground. And who knows, if you wanted to master that before you launched, maybe it wouldn't even be launched at this point in time. I mean, you may never know. But yeah, I totally agree with you that building a strong foundation is always something that's nice to have later on down the road.
Definitely. I probably should transition it as soon as possible now.
Yeah. So kind of a similar related topic. So what was one of your like biggest failures, and how did that help you succeed later on down the road?
Okay, there's this, the most recent one. So last year I was applying to this APM role, Associate Product Manager intern role at Google. And I had a lot of hopes. I got to the onsite. I was like, damn, this is amazing. I'm probably going to get it. I went to the interview. I prepared for like the whole, I think it was 2 weeks. And yeah, I didn't get it. And I was like really disappointed. I was even crying in my bed. I was like, fuck, what am I going to do in my life? And then that was in December. So my girlfriend was able to give me some sort of, reality check and told me that there's so much more opportunities out there. You shouldn't be confining yourself to just Google itself, and I was like, yeah. Since then, I sort of transformed my rage and frustration into startups. So like building building products on my own. And now with this project with More Domains, after 7 months later after that rejection, I think I feel much more fulfilled than if I had done an internship at Google. Albeit there's definitely a lot of great opportunities that I might have encountered if I went to Google. But like with this, I think I have much more personal satisfaction, much more flexibility, and I've definitely made way more connections than I could have if I was doing an internship for the summer. So I think, in life, there's definitely a lot of curveballs that are thrown your way. You just gotta figure out how to do with those curveballs and maybe curve them back or like do something that would benefit you in the long run. So
yeah, definitely. I think that's a great story, because I know a lot of people go in looking for internships or first time job positions, and they hear a lot of no's, and a lot of times they don't know what to do with that. And I think just turning that into motivation to go do something that's going to make you feel fulfilled is a great way to go about handling like no's from people. And there's nothing like a good solid no to give you a kick in the butt.
Definitely. I think LinkedIn is sort of exacerbating, like propagating this problem where people just keep sharing their yeses, like all the successes that they get. And you sort of feel like there's this thing of FOMO. You feel like you should be doing something with your life, and people don't talk about failures enough. I found a few websites recently that are really good at talking about failures. I think there's this thing called Failery. It's more of like entrepreneurs talking about their failed experiments in the past. And yeah, I think people definitely should talk more about their failures, because that sort of shows that, behind every successful person, there's always a lot of failures, and you cannot be successful without failing first.
That just got me pretty excited. The whole LinkedIn thing, like people just sharing their successes, I haven't thought about it like that before. And I feel like I could have, like, cause I just got an internship this summer doing digital analytics, and I feel like it would have been fun to go and post all of my failures of like, like when I got to
Definitely.
know, like, this is what I did wrong. I could have done this better. And that would provide a lot of value for other people as well. Almost definitely more value than you saying, yes, I got this internship. So,
100%, 100%. I think people saying yes is just to get like affirmation, and I
mhm.
mean it's a good thing. Like it's not. I'm not saying
Yeah,
it's bad, but like posting all these failures will definitely provide more value to the readers and to your audience than posting your successes.
that's definitely a good insight that you just gave me there. So I'm
Yeah,
excited about that.
and I sent you the name for Hillary if you want to check it out later.
Yeah, definitely. Um, so what differentiates your tool, one word domains, from other sort of similar domain search tools that are already on the market?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, I've tried out these different domain search tools. They're mainly how it works is that you go into that site, you have to think of a few keywords that you want to put into the domain name generator, and then they'll give you a bunch of, word combinations. So you go into these sites, you put in a term, and then they give you all these different word combinations where you can, there's this prefixes, suffixes, and combining with different words, mashing it up, but they don't exactly hit on the theme of what you're trying to get at. So for example, for me, I was thinking of something that was related to data. I was like, I put in data and they give you like data science, data rocks, data good, data pro. And it's not something that, for myself, I'm looking at something more abstract, like something like, I don't know, blue, because blue symbolizes security. And I know it's a very long stretch at that, but I think all these different genres didn't really give me something that I really liked. So my site, how I differentiated from all those is basically creating a database where people can just scroll through all of the domains that are readily available to register. And there's actually another site that does something similar, but a lot of their names, it was called dictionary domains, and like a lot of the names are dictionary words, and some of them were like saying, it was like verbs, like saying, doing, all these different verbs. And also there are some that were like with the suffix "ly," so like happily, beautifully. So it's great, but it's not enough diversity. So like I wanted something that touches on different genres. So I started out with like finding adjectives, verbs, nouns, and then I branched out into tech related terms, and positive terms. And now I even have a category for Spanish words, because one of my users sent me a list and asked me to run it. And I was like, okay, I'll do it, because a lot of people have requested for that before. So I think, yeah, that's basically how I differentiate myself, having all these different subgenres, different categories for people to choose from. And yeah, that's basically how
Awesome.
I do it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that some of those search tools out there aren't quite what most people are looking for. They're kind of just generic, and they don't quite give you that depth that you really want when you're looking for a domain. And I think kind of how you approach your tool can definitely provide that value for a lot of different people.
100%.
Yeah. I'm going to just close my window real quick. I don't know if you can tell, but there's a thunderstorm outside.
I can hear it too. I was like, is it mine? I was confused.
All right. And we're back.
Great. Perfect.
All right. So how did you go about marketing your like newly developed tool after developing it? I know you said you didn't spend like any money on marketing, but what were a couple of the things? I know you mentioned some of them, but if you could maybe go a little bit more in depth into like your strategy, I guess, for that.
Totally. I think for myself, for warmer domains, it was more about organic marketing and word of mouth. So what I did, the first thing with ProductCon, it really helped with SEO. So tips to anyone who wants to get your domain or get your project ranked higher on Google, do a successful ProductCon launch, because it really, really helps SEO. Like right after the ProductCon launch, my site was ranked. Like before that, it was not ranked at all. And right after that, I was ranked in the top 5. So I think that really, really helps with SEO. And then through that, I started building organic traffic, like people who clicked on my site directly from Google. And then also I did a bunch of like interviews with different, like the podcast I did with Domain Wire. And I also posted about my tool on Indie Hackers, on all these different sites. There's this new site called, I think it's called Site Projectors. and just a bunch of different, startup related sites. You can find a lot of them on Product Hunt and also through like Twitter. And I think definitely marketing it on Twitter, like building your brand presence on Twitter is something that's definitely very important, especially if you're doing something that is very related to the startup world, because Twitter, a lot of the startup people are on Twitter basically. So do that. Basically get as much backlinks as possible to your site on different valuable sites, not just random backlink farms. That will definitely help with getting people to get to your site simply because they're interested in it and not because they saw an ad.
All right. Yeah, that's definitely a good piece of advice there. And I think your marketing strategy for that was unique because you had that lean approach and you took those like podcast interviews, just blog posting about that. And like you said in the beginning, somebody posted for you about your tool on one of those other sites. So just having a good product can sometimes do marketing in itself through word of mouth.
100%.
So
I think, yeah, I totally agree with that. I also spoke about that before, but I think, once you're like this, I think it's a quote by Andreessen Horowitz, like the great, the VC guy. What he said is, when product market fit is happening, because a lot of people will be talking about your product without you even asking them to. And I think that's definitely something that I experienced with this. It's not even like a huge startup, it's just like a side project, but I think I was definitely solving people's needs, and that's why people were talking about it and just posting it on Hacker News and on Twitter. So
yeah, definitely. Well, we're going to switch over, start talking a little bit about data science and brand management and how those two things kind of overlap and have a nice, I guess you could say, symphony together. Didn't know what I was going to say there, but yeah.
I guess you were looking for synergies.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Yes.
Yeah.
So how exactly do data science and brand management fit together, and why do they complement each other?
So the reason why I took a double major in data science and brand management in college is because I've always been wanting to, since freshman year with all these startup projects, I wanted to build a product that would improve the user experience. And to do that, you would definitely need to analyze what the user is thinking when they're interacting with your product. And to do that, it's definitely very efficient to be able to analyze all these different data points from different stages in the user experience, the user journey, and from that, help improve your product by designing new features or by improving the user interface and stuff like that. So I think data analytics and I think, okay, here I just want to make a quick distinction between data science and data analytics.
Yeah.
Data analytics is what a lot of everyone does with, using analytics for marketing, for product management. Data analytics is basically taking a bunch of numbers, analyzing them, and then, producing an output. But data science is much more different because it's focusing on a lot about machine learning, about NLP. And to be honest, I'm not as good of a data science person than I am a data analytics person, but I'm trying to improve that, especially with all the courses I'm taking at school, and with this new feature that I'm planning for Warmer Domains, where I'm going to give people suggestions based on a selected niche, like suggestions for domains. So I think definitely these two, data science and brand management definitely go hand in hand. And you can definitely use all these different tools, different algorithms to improve your brand and just reach as much people and provide the best user experience possible.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I thank you for making that distinction between those two, because I know they're both such a hot, like trending, like skill today. And kind of knowing the difference between those two can be useful to know, because I'm sure a lot of people kind of get them mixed up here and there. So,
definitely.
Yeah. And also like, I think the whole part of like, branding, like as you were saying, the customer experience, a lot of like traditional marketers, branders, don't incorporate much data science or data analytics, and that leaves this like gap in their strategy and how they're approaching things. And same thing on the reverse side. A lot of people that are more in the tech space don't have like much marketing knowledge and like customer centric focused, I guess. So kind of that overlap there is definitely a nice synergy as you,
Definitely.
yes.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah.
So I guess another kind of thing that I was curious about was just like, is how much opportunity is there for similar tools like yours, where you're maybe using data science, data analytics to pull things together for people when they're looking for something? Now, not necessarily just domains, but like anything in general that people are looking for.
I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity in this space, not just domains like you said, because I've seen a lot of these list-based tools. I'm not sure if you heard of Nomad List. It's pretty big. It's basically a place where a lot of these digital nomads, I'm sure you are yourself because you're working on a podcast, you don't need to be fixed to a certain location. So it's basically a database for all these different digital nomads to see which cities are the best to live in the world. And they have like the site is the maker himself is making like $300,000 a year in yearly profit, like revenue, I think, because of two things, like membership. He's charging for premium membership, and it's a very fair model. It's like you can pay for a lifetime membership for like $99, which is really great. And there's also like ads and sponsorships on the site. And a lot of these tools are coming up. Nomad List is one. I've heard of Newsletter Stack. It's basically a collection of all the best newsletters. And also there's this thing called levels.fyi. It's basically just a more open sourced and like crowd contributed Glassdoor, which is basically where people just post their salaries. And a lot of these sites are getting a lot of eyeballs. Like I think levels.fyi has like 400,000 people a month, and the Nomad List has like, I don't know, like 10,000 users and like millions of page views per month. So I think a lot of these list-based products can definitely be built. Not to the build process is not too complicated. You just gotta find the right niche that you want to target, and then from that build your product. And it's gonna be very easy to market it because you already have a niche of people who are very interested in a tool, and you definitely need to be solving a certain very intrinsic problem that they're facing. So yeah.
Definitely. That whole key aspect of like the two things of finding your niche of people that are going to be actually like thoroughly interested in what you're doing, and then that solving that problem so you can provide that value. I think those two are like key things that you have to figure out before you start, because if it's not something that many people are like strongly intrigued in, it's going to be hard to pull people to that tool. And like your tool had that word of mouth where people would like post about it and they would come to it organically because you identified a niche and solved a problem through that. So
Definitely, yeah, totally agree.
So since data science is becoming like such a popular thing for business and such a vital aspect to become competitive, what are some like skills related to data science that you think entrepreneurs should know? Maybe not like super in-depth skills or kind of technical things, but just kind of some high-level things that entrepreneurs should be aware of.
So for entrepreneurs, I will assume that you're not that like deeply into natural language processing or machine learning. So I would sort of touch on the ones that are more applicable to a lot of different business use cases. So one thing that I can think of is definitely the ability to run SQL calls, or like just basically doing a lot of like data wrangling and data manipulating things where you basically get a bunch of data, and it can be in CSV format, it can be in JSON, and a lot of these formats are they are structured, but you still got to process it to visualize it in a way that could be beneficial and could give you insights to help you improve the product. So I think you definitely need the skills to be able to, and one more skill is definitely cleaning unstructured data. So a lot of this, it's really annoying because like I remember doing I took a machine learning course last semester, and my final project for the school year is basically I was cleaning up my Telegram chat data with my girlfriend, because like we're in long distance for the semester, so we talk a lot on Telegram. And I was just basically cleaning up the chat conversation. It was like hundreds of thousands of messages. And like, I just wanted to create a natural language model where basically create a chatbot that speaks like myself so that my girlfriend can talk to it when I'm not available because like time zones and stuff. So that like cleaning up unstructured data was really, really challenging. And that's something that if you can master, you can be very successful as a data science or a scientist or a data analytics person. So I think two things. So one is cleaning up unstructured data and one is interpreting structured data. So
yeah, those are like two very useful things. I could like guarantee you that.
Definitely, yeah.
So in my internship that I'm doing now with digital analytics, of course, like like in school, I wasn't dealt much dirty data. But in my internship, like knowing some SQL code and knowing how to use R to kind of manipulate data to make it a little bit more user friendly has definitely served myself well, and it's been a big learning curve as well. So
definitely, I think sometimes in school they don't teach us enough on how to manipulate and like how to clean up dirty data, and it definitely takes a lot of practical experience and working in an actual company to figure that out. So I think doing side projects is definitely one of the ways to do that.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And the whole that like chat bot thing that you created, did you actually like complete that and get it done, or what?
I did. Yeah, and my professor is like, he's pretty impressed. It was like, this is very creative. I gotta admit, it's not the most perfect chatbot. Like, it was started by giving you some good conversation, but then you will always resort to "I love you, I love you, I love you," like because I say that a lot. So it's just like it's not the perfect chatbot. That's definitely, but it was a good attempt, I guess.
Yeah.
Good practice.
That's really cool. That's awesome. I haven't touched natural language processing yet, but that's definitely
the beast to conquer.
Yeah, definitely a cool use case though. So speaking more a little bit about brand management, what would you say are three of the most important things for businesses to like do in order to maintain a strong brand with like everything that's changing so fast in today's world?
Yeah, I think for this question, I will also tie it back a bit to your personal branding as an entrepreneur, because if you're making something, if you're building a new product, a new startup, it's always important to have a good personal brand. So I think Twitter is a very good avenue for you to do that, both for your personal brand and your product's brand, because I just think Twitter is especially with software startups, it's very important to be on Twitter. But if you're doing something related to entertainment, to writing or podcast, or like more of something that's like providing listening value or watching value to people, it's definitely important to be on Instagram, on different social. Like I think for different businesses, different social media platforms are more like applicable. And aside from social media, I will also go into blog posts about guest posts, like going to all these different big reputable sites and getting your product featured there. And I think a lot of this, I recently found about this hack where you can answer questions in Quora and put a small shout out to your product. But it has to be something that's genuine. You have to be providing value to people, and then the people will, through that, they will check out your product. So I think a lot of these different, they call it guerrilla marketing tactics. It's basically what people, it's a nice way, it's a euphemism for poor people's marketing skills tactics, because you don't have a big marketing spend to just throw out there. So I think all these different ways are definitely very helpful in building a brand presence, because people know about your brand through Quora answers, through people writing about you. And yeah, I think that really helps build credibility, because especially when people talk about you, like humans as in general, we tend to react better to recommendations from people we trust. And I think word of mouth, tying back to word of mouth again, I think that's something that's going to be very effective in building a good brand presence as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, those like guerrilla marketing tactics are not to be underestimated, because they have such a deeper impact on an individual level, like you were saying, than do those like larger scale marketing efforts.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah. And you might only impact like 5 people or so, but they might impact them for like years instead of months or whatnot. And are you at a
Exactly.
hard stop right now, or do you have no? Okay,
No.
alrighty,
Yeah, I'm good.
cool. So we're gonna move on to the fast five section here. Five
Great.
questions. We'll go through them pretty quick. So, what is the most valuable learning experience that you've had so far?
I think it's a quick one, but I'm gonna talk really briefly about this time when I was in high school. I was like 13 or 14, and I was really addicted to computer games, and my parents would never let me play them. You know, Asian parents, right? But I would always sneak out, and there was once really funny. I was thinking of this excuse to go to an internet cafe, which is like where you play, like it's a bunch of computers,
Yeah.
you can rent it for like an hour. So I would say that I'm going to, scouts practice. And I was like, I would sneak off and go to the cafe to play instead. And then there was once my mom caught me, and I thought she was gonna like punish me and like ground me for the whole year or something. But instead, she brought me to buy a guitar and two Harry Potter books. I still remember it till now. And that really changed to me. I never went to a internet cafe. I never played computer. I mean, I do play, but not like crazy. I don't do anything like that anymore because I think this way of punishing and teaching people a lesson is definitely a very effective way as opposed to a punitive measure. So yeah, that's one of the biggest takeaways and lessons from my life. Actually, it's a great turning point for myself. If my mom hadn't done that, I don't know where I would be right now. So I'm very grateful to her, definitely.
Yeah, I that's very interesting to me. I really like that actually. That's very intriguing, and it seemed like that had a positive impact on you rather than just punishing you and you are all frustrated and mad and
Rebellious,
then there's
exactly.
yeah, so I can see how that would be effective.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
definitely parenting 101 right there.
Yeah. So what is one book that you would recommend? And if you want to give a shout out for your titles of the books that you've wrote, you can also do that right now as well. So
I would, but I don't think it's like very. I could. I'll talk about it after I recommend the book that I
okay.
have in mind. It's basically Principles by Ray Dalio. I'm still reading it. It's an amazing book. It's very very famous, but
Mhm.
it basically teaches you a lot about having strong principles and things like moral values that you stick to, and it's very important to you when you're doing business. And to give a quick shout out to my book, it's basically a science fiction novel targeted towards teens from ages 13 to 18. So I'm not sure if that applies to your target audience, but it's basically a science fiction novel about someone who goes through a car accident, and then he wakes up and then realizes a different person's voice inside his head. So he goes on this crazy journey to find out who that person is and how to get him or her out of there. So the name of the book is Someone's in My Head. So it's someone with S, apostrophe S. If you look it up online, you can find a free version on Wattpad. I used to write a lot on there, and it's basically like the YouTube for books. So if you
All
want to check
right.
it out, feel free. I'm not like saying it's amazing or like you should definitely check it out, but just putting it out there.
Yeah, thanks for throwing that out there.
Great.
What is one business tool that you would recommend?
Airtable. It's a great way for people to get into database management, and it's a pain-free way. It's designed in such a way that it has an amazing user experience and has a lot of functionality. So it's like Google Sheets but on steroids basically. And yeah, definitely check that out especially if you're doing CRM, lead management, or just you can even use that as your database for your application. But there's definitely a lot of you need to set contingencies just in case Airtable crashes, because that's exactly what happened last night. And it was really funny. I had a customer who was buying a new product on the site, and an Airtable crashed. He couldn't log into the platform, and I was so sorry, because like a lot of people got affected by the Airtable crash as
Hmm.
well. So definitely have contingency plans in place. But Airtable is definitely a great precursor, or like an introduction, a warm introduction to database management.
Yeah, that's actually really intriguing to me because I took database management as a course last semester, and oh my God, was it like the most painful, like 3 or 4 months of my life.
Which one was you studying? Was it Mongo, or was it like
We
SQLite?
we were doing SQL,
SQL, okay.
SQL, yeah, and
Yeah.
I loved the class. I'm not gonna lie, I liked it. I loved the logic of it and just the coding aspect because I've never taken a coding class before. But oh my god, did I spend so many hours in the computer lab at school, just like bug-eyed, just it was an interesting experience. So a pain-free way to get started on that definitely intrigues me. I think definitely I might have to go check it out just to see what it looks like.
Definitely. They have a lot of API integrations you can easily integrate into your web app. So definitely check it out.
Cool. So
Yeah.
how do you go about scheduling your time and planning things ahead?
I do that with my trusty black notebook.
Ooh.
And I'm very old school that way. I tried out a few different apps to do that. Like I was trying out this new app. I forgot the name, but it basically is a Chrome extension that keeps track of all your to-do tasks. But I still prefer the notebook because it's just easy to just write it and look at it. It's black and white, and you don't have to, open your phone because, like, I don't know. I'm just old school that way, I guess. So that's how I go about planning. And
Yeah, I'm very similar. Very similar for me. I have like a to-do list that I always have that never ends.
I like that. You just keep adding stuff, crossing stuff.
Always. Once you have like, about 50% left, you always just fill in like 5 or 6 more just so you have a full docket just in case.
Definitely. I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah. So last question here. What is the number one thing that drives your motivation?
It's starting got very existential in just like 3 seconds.
No, it did.
But I think, okay, I can think of one. So it's basically this notion of being able to achieve financial freedom before I'm 30.
Okay.
It's a very ambitious goal, I'd say, but I grew up in a middle class income family, and I saw how hard my parents worked to give me the life that I can have now. I want to do it in such a way, to achieve financial freedom, not just for my life partner in the future, but also for my kids and like for my family, because that's something that will be very valuable. And I think by doing all these different ventures, different side projects, I think eventually I'll be able to find something that would both give me joy in doing, but also help me achieve financial freedom. And that's something that sort of gets me up and makes me work and hustle hard every single day.
Yeah, definitely. That's a very, very good motivation that you have there. And I like one thing that, like, personally, I've kind of been trying to think about a lot is like setting like goals and putting like time limits on them, because especially like big goals, like having financial freedom or like maybe just having a successful, in quotes, business. Because like it seems like if I put a time limit on it, if I get to that point in time, a lot of people struggle with this, where if you get there in that point in time and you haven't done it, it's like, oh, well, I'm out of time. But
yeah,
I feel like you have to like put a mental note that like, if I don't do this by then, that's okay. I just keep going.
I think one way to make that more achievable would be to break it down into smaller sub goals. Like what I did with the one word domains is basically I just set a goal of 7 days for me to finish the web app, and it happened. So I think all these different small deadlines or milestones that you set for yourself would definitely help you, one, have a sense of satisfaction and achievement every time you achieve a small goal, and two, work your way towards that big goal at the end of 10 years or 15 years. And that is definitely like, it's one of the cornerstone values that we learn at Minerva during our freshman year. We have all these different, we call them HCs. They're basically hashtags with all these different key phrases that we have to learn. So one of them was break it down. This is basically breaking down a complex problem and then, setting tiny goals to achieve the main solution. So yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say. And like, maybe that's something that can be infused by your listeners. So yeah,
definitely. Yeah. That's breaking goals down is very helpful. I was a personal trainer for like a year or so, and I would always walk my clients through like, all right, set your long-term goal, make sure it's smart, and then do the breakdown. And I wrote like one of my like most like I got like 100 views on my blog post that I wrote about goals, but that was my most successful blog post. So 100 views strong on that one. So
amazing. That's a great start. Like that's exactly what you should be doing, setting on this 100 views and then 500, 1,000, achieving them one by one.
Yes.
And really admire what you're doing with this podcast and your blog.
I appreciate that. Well, Steven, you gave some great information about just like data science, brand management, their synergy, not symphony, and just your awesome story. Your story is really inspiring, and you have done a great job with the tool that you built and marketing that. So I admire you for what you've done with that. But before we wrap up, if you could provide one main takeaway for everyone listening so they can get one last bit of value from you, that would be great.
So the main takeaway that I have from this whole project is definitely when you or anyone who's trying to build a product out there, if you're trying to solve a problem that you face yourself, if it's something that you really are desperate in need of a solution for, and you also realize that it's something that a lot of people, a huge number of people, are also looking to find a solution. That's when you have something that could potentially find product market fit if you build it. So you don't really need to build, like when you're finding new ideas for your startups, you shouldn't be actively looking for product market fit. Instead, you should be looking for problems and then figure out the solution to them. So that's basically the biggest takeaway that I have from this whole project is product market fit is usually found serendipitously and not actively.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really a great main takeaway. And I think one kind of quote that fits well with that is that, try to not see problems, but see opportunities. And I think that just that opportunity is that product market fit, like you said. So
exactly. Totally agree with that. Yeah.
Definitely a great main takeaway. And last thing here, where can we find more about you and one-word domains?
I'm more active on Twitter, on LinkedIn. On Twitter, I couldn't find my name on Twitter. It was taken, so it's kind of annoying, but it's just FNTay. So it's FNTUY. Right. And then on LinkedIn, I'm Steven Tay. That's just my name, Steven Tay. And then one-word domains, you can check out the website. It's just literally oneword.domains. And then on Twitter, I'm trying to build up the Twitter brand for one-word domains. And I couldn't find the available handle. It's kind of annoying. So I have it on oneword_domains. So if you want to check that out, that's great as well.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, Steven, I really appreciate you taking the time to come share your knowledge with everybody listening, and I had a great time speaking with you.
It was totally my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
That wraps it up for today's episode, everyone. I'm really glad I was able to share Steven's story with you guys. Thanks again, Steven, for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it. And for you listening to the podcast right now, I truly appreciate you listening, supporting this podcast. It really means a lot to me. If you're interested in hearing some more amazing entrepreneurial stories and advice, make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave a rating and review. If you truly thought this was a worthwhile podcast, it would definitely help me grow this podcast and bring more awareness to people who may not have had the chance to listen in yet. Lastly here, if you're looking for information about everything that we talked about, like the links or some overview of the topics we discussed, you can head over to studentbuiltstartups.com for the show notes. They'll have everything that you're looking for right there. Thanks again, and I will catch you on the next episode.